All right, we're back. It feels like we haven't done this in forever, even though we're releasing every week. I
Yeah,
feel like we have not been on a podcast in a while, like talking to each other.
because we've both been unwell for the last like 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh, it started with you like 2 weeks. Was it 2.5 weeks ago?
Yeah, yep. I got the flu. Guys, I got the flu. Don't recommend getting the flu. It was awful. It's the 1 year I didn't get my flu shot, and it just really
Oh
kicked my ass. So
my gosh.
then Kelsey got sick.
It's been something like something is I don't know what this flu season this year has been, but
It's been
I
rough.
don't mine was more I think a cold, but I have no idea. I'm fine now. I woke up yesterday, body battery of 100 on my Garmin, and I was like, "Oh my gosh." That was quick, but I also literally did nothing Wednesday and Thursday at all.
Yeah.
Like nothing.
Yeah. I was living based off of my Aura Ring like readiness readings, and I was like,
Uh,
"Oh, we're at 33.
yep,
We're
that is
definitely not well." And then it just
yep.
progressively got better. So,
Good.
tell me you're a fitness girly without telling me you're a fitness girly. You just let your Aura Ring decide if you're
Yeah.
sick or not.
So very similarly to my Garmin.
Yep.
And yeah, it was same. I was like body battery 32 on Wednesday morning, even though
Yeah.
I tried to get 9 hours of sleep. And I was like, hmm,
Yeah. Every
not fun.
doctor I saw though was like, this cold and flu season is knocking everybody out. So I was like, okay, so I'm not alone in this misery that is taking upon my body. But then I went away for my birthday and then I came back and regressed. But now we're better. So it's a roller
Well,
coaster.
at least you weren't sick while you were in the Dominican.
Yep. Yep.
And hopefully you're on your way up.
Yeah, I was like, oh, maybe I just need to go back to the Dominican because
You should have
I
done.
was a better person back there. I was in the sun. It was like a whole new personality compared to what I was. So I was like, maybe we just gotta go back on vacation. Maybe
You just,
that's just what needs
and
to
you will.
happen.
In
Things
10 days, you
We
will be.
are going on vacation actually. So
So
there is
good.
another vacation coming very soon. It's like my immune system knew that
Immune
we
system.
were going to need that. It is funny. I forgot that we were leaving so soon. And then I went to my Delta app and it was like 10 days till check in. And I'm like, oh my Lord.
I am so ready. I am also just so excited to go from Houston to Tulum in first class. I'm
You're going
ex-
to love it.
I love
Yeah.
first. Also, although like the first time I flew first class, it really screws you up because then you like have this and then you fly main cabin and you're like, I feel like a peasant,
Yeah.
and you just want to be in first class. I just, it's a great experience.
We were upgraded to first class for both flights to and from the Dominican. And I'm like, this never happens. Like, usually I get my upgrade for like maybe one out of two. And also never for like an international flight. I mean, international is like 4 hours. It's nothing crazy. But yeah, being sick, it was an extra blessing because the last thing I wanted was to be wedged into like a main cabin seat and just also be amongst other sickos that were also on the plane, and we would all just have this melody of coughing and
Oh,
sneezing and sniffling. It would have just been a whole time back there. So very blessed with my upgrades. I also am just I did it for the people. I did it for the people to
big
be.
way from the people.
Yeah, it's like Delta knew. Delta was like, we're
Let's
gonna
just
upgrade
keep
her.
her in a seat only with her husband.
Yeah.
Your friend's comment on your post also sent me. I was gonna respond to it, just like with a bunch of laughing faces, like
My friend Jake, little asshole.
1 million out of 10 do not recommend going with someone who's coughing every 3 seconds.
It was the worst. I just kept coughing. But it was so funny, Jake. Every time I would cough, I would just make eye contact with him. Like, it was just like every time. And then we would just like flip each other off and then like laugh at the same time. And then I would cough more because I'm laughing. And it was a whole thing. But
Oh my gosh.
he's gonna act like he didn't have the time of his life, and he did. He had a great time.
Yeah. Was it
Mhm.
an all inclusive?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I highly recommend everybody takes at least one all-inclusive trip a year if you can. Like, and I'm an adventurer. I am a full, like, when I go on trips, I'm like filling the itinerary. I want to see everything, do everything. But I've become this like once a year I have to take just an all-inclusive vacation where I do nothing and I just lay. That's
And enjoy everything.
such a
Yeah.
good feeling. So
Yeah.
hopefully we'll continue that cadence for
Yeah.
next year.
You love that.
Yep.
Hey, well,
And we
I,
didn't even intro back the podcast, like
yeah.
who we are.
Well, here we are. Let's do it now.
Welcome
That was a nice little intro.
to our
Um,
recap of the last 2 weeks of hell we lived in.
yeah.
But welcome back to the podcast.
This is the Beyond the Couch podcast. I am host number 1 or number 2. I don't know.
Tweedledee. I'm host Tweedledee.
And that's Tweedledum. Oh my gosh. I am Kelsey Nanini though.
And I'm Chris Sweet Tweedledum.
I'm so interested to see how this sounds playing it back because I feel like I sound so nasally.
I mean, when you intentionally snort into the mic, it's gonna sound nasally.
Yeah, previous to this podcast, before we pressed play, I definitely blew my nose to not sound
There
as
was some
nasally
there was some graphic
directly into the mic. And then
some
when I
graphic
muted
images
myself,
popped up.
just a wad of snot.
Mm.
So when I picked my husband up from the airport on Thursday, the first thing he said to me, he was only gone for like 48 hours, but he was like, "You sound awful." And I was like, "Wow,
Thanks.
it's been really nice not seeing you as well." Like, you sound
See,
horrible.
when I was sick, I like every day, especially leading up to vacation, I was like convinced. It was like I was trying to convince myself that I was feeling better and looking better. So I would like wake up and I mean, you heard my voice. I had no voice. I sounded like I smoked like a pack a day. And I would like wake up and I'd like rehearse my voice in the morning. And then I would go to Kenneth and I would say, "Don't I sound better?" He's like, "You sound better than yesterday." I was like, "See, I'm better." But I'm like, "But I need you to say I'm sounding great. Like, I'm going to need a lot more convincing than that." And then, like, when we were traveling and I, like, still had my raspy voice, I was trying to just get him to, like, talk for me. I was like, "I'm mute and you will be speaking. You are now my is executive speaker of the
Translator.
house of me."
Speaker of the house.
So,
Oh, it's
but
been
we
a
are in
long
better
time.
shape for this podcast. We
are
might
better.
hack up a lung, we might sniffle, we might blow a nose or two. But you know, if we can't show up as our worst selves, then how can you ever expect us at our best? So,
Fine. It'll just be a nice little, we can remember this time forever now.
funny haha.
Funny, it was very funny, haha. No, I've been dying for the past 3 days, so 5 days actually. We're on day 5, so
Yeah.
six actually.
Yep. But lucky for all of our listeners, they get to hear you today, our sniffly queen, tell
I
her
feel
story
out right now, so I think we're good.
There we go. All right. Well, the present of clearing a nose has blessed us now with getting to hear Kelsey's story. You guys heard mine. Now we get to hear all about Miss Kels.
Yay. Okay, well, I don't know exactly where to start, but I'll just kind of start from growing up, like real quick, just covering, I
Start
guess.
from the womb, you know?
Start from the womb. I was born on July 1st, 1995. I will be 30 this year.
Whoa! Wait, are you
and-
doing anything for your 30th?
Oh, this is such a funny thing. Okay, so every year, because so Caden's birthday is on June 30th, mine is on July 1st, our honeymoon is on July 2nd. Or our
I was
Our
like, do you
anniversary.
remember your honeymoon date? That's cute.
No, not exactly. Our anniversary. So like it's back 3 days back to back of just like us. So every year we take some sort of trip. The first year is when we moved, so we just did like a staycation in Scottsdale, but then every year we've just gone somewhere. Actually, every year it's been in Arizona. We did Sedona the next year. Last year was Flagstaff. This will be year 4, our 4th anniversary, which is crazy. And my 30th birthday. And last year's Caden's 30th. And we're planning on doing no travel this year besides like the necessary stuff, and the necessary stuff ended up being like a
Going,
lot
you
of
and
stuff.
I going to
Yeah.
Mexico together? Question mark.
Caden's going to Portugal in May, like for like 3 days, which is super
Mhm.
weird. And then just like a bunch of these small trips. And I was like, okay, well, it's kind of not fair, like, for my 30th that we just do nothing. Like,
Yeah, like the one year you decide not to do anything is your
I was
30.
like,
I feel like there's something wrong there.
well, we have to do something. So we don't actually know what we're doing yet, but we do something every year. It'll be a small trip. We're thinking about Pine Top, which we love Pine Top.
Mhm.
It's up in like northwest-ish. Well, it's northwest of us, Arizona. So,
Mhm.
or northeast, sorry, northeast Arizona. Directions are hard. So yeah, to be determined. But I do want to do something.
Yeah.
It'll be low key though.
I'm trying to go to Africa for my 30th, so just
I like in my head was like, I'm
I
gonna be
still
in
have
the
2 years, so I
You
got
have
play
enough
I could
time,
plan it.
yeah. I was like, I want to do something like I wanted it to be a big trip. Like I was like, I want to go all, and then now we're trying to like save money. So I'm like,
Yeah, being a responsible adult's really hard.
it really is. And sometimes even those small trips end up being just as much as like if you were to use points going somewhere else. But we want to take our dogs, so
Yeah.
oh
A
well.
lot of
Um,
logistics.
but yeah, anyways, so my
So,
story. Um, a lot of what shaped me, I think, was just always being an athlete. And I know this is like very similar to yours too. Like, grew up playing sports. Like, I started sports when I was 3. I started dance, and then I also did t-ball. And also 10 out of 10 recommend like any like I want to put my all of my kids in dance. Like it just like forms your body so well. Like not forms, that's a weird way to say it, but it helps you get coordinated, like coordination.
as
Anyways,
someone
so
who didn't do dance, I am a great case study of what happens when you don't put your child through dance.
I even talked about like gymnastics. Like I want like
Um,
my kids to do
Gymnastics is a
gymnastics
good
too.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like I don't know. So I did a lot. I did like all the types of dance. I actually cheerleaded for 1 year. It was only like a dance class, like not like for school. And then did t-ball, played softball up until 7th grade. 7th grade. Started basketball in 6th grade. Started volleyball in 3rd grade. And then I quit all the sports to play volleyball, which I definitely wish I would have played more sports while I was doing that. But so yeah, I think a lot of what like I do now is just in that I grew up really, really active. My brother was always in sports, and so if I wasn't at my sporting event, I was at my brother's. Um, and my parents just kept us super active. So I was really, really thankful for that. Um, I also think a lot of like how I am now and like being kind of um like go getter but also like supportive, and I feel like I like just take a different like in coaching specifically. I may go all over the place. I'm like tracking. It makes sense once I talk about it, but my parents were always the parents who were like at all the sporting events. They were like the super like supportive parents who were like, my mom was like, I'm gonna make all them like a bunch of food for like the team table at volleyball tournaments. Like at volleyball tournaments we all shared a table of food, and like the parents would sign up for stuff. um and they were, oh, my dad was always a coach. Actually, he coached baseball at his middle school. He's a middle school teacher. And then he also has done football and now like basketball and track. So he's just done it all. But I was always really thankful because they were like not the parents who were really like tough on me. Um, and I actually did a study on that of like in high school. It was like parents that are supportive versus the parents who were like yelling at their kids after sports and like telling them they weren't doing good enough and being on their ass, and like how that kind of formed them and how a lot of those kids ended up getting burnt out of sports and like have a really poor relationship with exercise and like the sports they played growing up. It's always been so interesting to me. So I was always really thankful for that, like having the support that my parents like never got on me if I didn't play well in a game. It was like, well, what was going on versus like, I can't believe you would do that kind of thing. And I think that's a lot of what I actually like took into my coaching now. It's not like if a client screws up in a week, it's like, why would you do that? It's like, hey, what happened? And like, what led you to that? It's like asking the right questions. And so definitely really thankful for that. Um, and I feel like my life growing up was nothing except for like sports and being active. We would go on like a lot of family hikes and just do a lot of stuff as a family on vacations. Like we'd always go and do like activities and things like that. So, um, yeah, I mean, I never knew anything else other than sports. I never have really identified still to this day as anything except for an athlete. Somebody I remember asking after I was done playing college sports, they're like, "So what do you do now? Like who are you?" And I was like, "Honestly, I don't know who Kelsey is. Like I'm just an athlete. That's just what I am." And I was always a volleyball player, but it's kind of cool now that I get to be an athlete of other things too. Um, but yeah, I had in high school, again, only played volleyball. I had like an awesome high school coach. She actually taught me like a lot of good, just like life lessons. We had this thing called flow time. Also, if you're listening, Flo, hello. Um, but yeah, her name was Flo. Well, her name is actually Mandy Flores, but she went by Flo. And so she had this thing, it was called flow time. So if you were 15 minutes late, if you weren't 15 minutes early or late, I will unfortunately say I like stuck to that through college and not now. I'm not late. I'm just directly on time now.
Like right on time.
Yeah, like I will be there on the dot, but I will not be there any earlier. Maybe 2 minutes early if I'm lucky. But yeah, it was really nice to just have like a coach who believed in you and like really cheered you on. Like I was kind of glad that I never really grew up with like the coaches that like I don't know, were so tough on you, yelling at you that it made you turned off to athletics because I know a lot of people that were like that. But when I got into college, I would say college is what really, really, really formed me into like where I am now. Um, it's funny, in high school, I thought I wanted to be a physical therapist. I was in a sports med class for all 3 years of high school. Fun fact, I was in like our sports med club.
There was a sports
Uh,
med club.
yeah, get this. We went to like regionals for like sports med. Like we competed in. It sounds
My high
so
school
nerdy.
never had anything like that.
So my friend Kalani, our physical therapist advisor, so her and I were in sports med together. We had to get separated all the time because we talked too much, and we went and like competed at like state for sports medicine. So like wrapping ankles, taping ankles, like doing like elbow tape, like, and I can tape a nice ankle, like I still to this day. Um, it's such a funny thing. Like I always forget
Noted
about.
for if I ever have to wrap my own ankle. I know.
Yeah, you know the
Great.
call.
I'm changing my emergency contact to you.
You start the like Instagram like the Instagram like trend and it's like my emergency
My emergency
contact and
contact.
it's me wrapping your ankle.
You and me in the club in Austin. My emergency contact.
Literally.
I can't.
So yeah, that's a little fun fact I always forget about as well. I like so bad. I was like, I'm gonna be a physical therapist. And so when I was applying to schools, I was like trying to play volleyball in college, but I was also like, well, if I don't end up playing, that's okay. I did want to play though, and so I would still apply to schools for like that had like pre-physical therapy programs like kinesiology and stuff like that. And then one day in high school, I remember it was boys soccer season was in the spring, so it was towards the tail end of my senior year, and one of the kids on the soccer team, he was in my sports med class and we were taping ankles and he was like actually had an ankle like a sprained ankle and I remember we like did round robin with ankle taping and his foot was so sweaty and he actually had a sprain and I was like I can't do this. I actually hate feet. And I've always known that. Like I think they're so disgusting.
I also hate feet, like fully. Like they are nasty.
But it's so weird because like they're normally in shoes. So like it really isn't that like feet really aren't I don't know why they're so gross to me, but they are.
No, they're gross.
And I
They're
have nasty feet. Like just being in like working out like it's nasty for your calluses and stuff. Like
Mhm.
I do not have nice feet. Will never be a foot model, unfortunately. But yeah, I had to tape his foot and I told my teacher, I was like,
That's the line. You're like, I'm drawing a line right here.
And that was when I was like, well, I'm not. And I think I was already committed to George Fox, where I went to college. I already committed to play volleyball there. And I had an undecided major going into college because I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I was like, well, I'm not going to be a physical therapist now. I could not tape this dude's foot. And I was actually at the time going there for athletic training.
Mm.
And then I was like, I can't do that. So I went in undecided in my freshman year. And towards the end of freshman year, I was like, I think I'm going to do marketing. Like, I wanted to do sports marketing. I wanted to work for like a professional sports team and do that kind of thing. And then this summer going into my sophomore year, this was actually the summer before I tore my ACL. My dad and I hiked Mount St. Helens, that's in Southwest Washington. It blew up in 1980, I think it was. So there's like it's like shaped like this. It's really cool. But it was like a full day hike. We camped the night before. And when I got to the top, I was like, this was so empowering. It was so cool. I can't remember if it was after I lost a bunch of weight because that was the summer I did this. Like, I'll get to that. But, anyways, at the top of that, I was like, I think I want to be like a personal trainer. Like, I think that's something I want to explore. And so I switched my major to health and human performance. But the end of my freshman year of college, after my first season of volleyball was done, I had a coach, and he was my coach for 3 of the 4 years I played. He told me at the end, and I was never a big athlete, but I was never like the skinniest one on the team. I was just like, I didn't really focus on nutrition. So like I wasn't skinny, but I also wasn't fat because I also like worked out all the time. I did a lot of strength and conditioning classes, never lifted, maybe a little tiny bit, but end of my freshman year, he's like, if you want to be the starting libero next season, which I was always a setter. And then once I got to college, I was too short to set. So I went to like, I was just a defensive specialist my freshman year. And then I wanted to be the libero. I was like, I want to be a starter.
What is a libero? Can you,
As someone,
as someone who has never played
sure.
volleyball outside of in a pool,
The libero is the opposite color jersey. So you can basically, wearing a different color jersey, you only can play in the back row, but you can sub in for anyone in the back row. You're typically subbing in for middle blockers because they don't typically pass very well, but no offense if you're a middle blocker, it's just fact. And so you can just sub in for anyone. So I always was a setter, which is the one who like sets up the hitter to hit and almost touches every ball. And I loved like running the court that way, but I was just short, so I couldn't play all the way around, and they didn't want to run that kind of offense in college. So I wanted to be the libero. You play the whole time. You can be on the court at all times in the back row, which is really cool, except for like one play. So he was like, if you want to start, basically, if you want to be a starter next season, you need to lose weight. And I was so perplexed. Like, I was never super confident, but I was never like self-doubting. Like, I was never like, oh, I'm out of shape. Oh, I need to lose weight. In high school, a little bit, I remember going to the lake, and we'd like, one time my friend and I like wrapped ourselves in saran wrap so we'd look skinnier. Didn't do anything.
crazy.
Like, yeah, weird shit like that. But like, I never had an eating problem in high school. If anything, I didn't care at all. So like, I just ate a lot, and I just thought it was like I was kind of just a funny girl. Like, I just was like, I didn't never have a boyfriend in high school. I just didn't care about anything. I was just like, I love food and I work out, and that's like who I am. And it still kind of is who I am to this day. But I was just goofy. So when I like freshman year, I was 19. What year was that? 2014. End of 20. It was, yeah, started college in 2013. So this would have been 2014, like spring of 2014. So I was about to turn 19, and I was like, what? Like, this is crazy. So I went home. I didn't exactly know what I was going to do. And then someone I knew was doing the Advocare 24-day challenge, and she was posting about it. And I always say, like, at a time where I should have been just focused on like going to the gym that I go to, because I went to a gym and did a lot of strength and conditioning classes through high school, did them during college breaks, all that. At a time where I should have been like focused on Olympic lifting and doing those classes and like deadlifting, lifting heavy. Like, we never got a lifting program for college. Actually we did, but it was a really bad one and no one liked doing it, so we just didn't do it, which is really bad. But at that time, like, I should have been doing so many different things, but I was pretty much starving myself. You weren't allowed to salt your foods. You weren't allowed to use any condiments. I remember I no, that was the next summer. Never mind. Anyways, I was like just like eating like cold tilapia. I worked at a golf course. I would eat cold tilapia and like green beans. You take a bunch of supplements throughout the day. I remember I bought an additional supplement fat burner on top of like the package I already done. And the first part of it was like a cleanse, so I was barely eating anything, but it was awful. I ended up actually losing, I think, like 20 pounds in 24 days, something like that. Maybe it was like 15. I don't remember the exact number. And I looked different, like, but you could just tell it was never fat. It was just inflammation. I just had a ton of like water retention because I just didn't, I don't know, whatever. At the end of my freshman year, I really was barely eating because I didn't like the school food. It made my stomach, like, it destroyed my stomach. So I really like wasn't eating on the tail end, or I'd have like a PB&J, and like I lived off PB&J and quinoa. And like Sundays we wouldn't go to the the place we ate was called the Bone, Bon Appetit. So we wouldn't go to the Bone on Sundays, and I called it Survival Sunday. So I like just wouldn't eat, except for like the snacks in
Oh
my
my
dorm. Like,
God.
snacks in my dorm. I'm like a college athlete, and like not eat. It was just, but there was no resources for us.
I keep thinking about how you and I would have been like such great friends with our fad
Yeah,
diets that we were following, like
it was
taking our fat
ridiculous.
burners together.
Yeah, seriously, it's like so. Like my heart hurts sometimes for like the 18-year-old Kelsey, and
Yeah.
I wish there was like more information out there. College, well, for like D3 athletes, I was like Division 3, bottom of the totem pole, the NCAA, but like still, there should be more resources for college athletes. Like we never had a nutritionist. There's nothing there for us, and I hate that because there needs to be, especially for women. Like I had a teammate who had an eating disorder. She was really stressed out all the time. She was like working nights to like make it in her major, and was really struggling, but like couldn't reach out to any of us, and like didn't get any help. It was really sad. So, anyways, lost the weight, and lo and behold, I became a starter. It was the season that we actually like my team in college wasn't ever really, really super good. But this was the season. Like we were stacked. Like we were really good halfway through the season. Like we were competing really well, and then at practice, I ended up tearing my ACL. Like one of the girls shanked a ball, and the basketball team was practicing at the same time on both sides of us. So we practiced on the middle court, and then those like curtains were down on both sides.
Mhm.
And I was running towards the ball that was shanked, and I remember I was running towards a curtain, and my foot just stopped. And I think mentally, like running towards a curtain, you're like trying to slow yourself down. My foot stopped, but my knee kept going. And
Mhm.
weirdly enough, it like didn't hurt. It like just I knew what happened, so I started crying. I had always torn my or like sprained ankles all through volleyball. Like I had a sprained ankle all the time, so like my ankles are just rubber at this point. Like I can roll an ankle and walk fine, and like it's kind of disgusting. So like I've always known like pretty well injured. Like I knew injuries, and I was like I just tore my ACL. I looked up at one of my teammates. She was a really awesome outside hitter, and it was her senior year, and I looked at her, I was like, I just tore my ACL. And I remember her just looking at me. And I went to a private Christian school where like you weren't allowed to do anything bad. And she looked at me and she just goes, fuck. And I was like, and she was fiery. But I'll never forget that moment. I'll never forget when she looked at me, and I felt like I let my team down. Oh, I was like upset. I actually had just started like talking to Caden a month earlier, who's now my husband. And I was like, all these things were going through my head. I'm like, well, my season's over. I'm never gonna have. I'd never had a boyfriend up to that point. We weren't like officially dating, but I was like, he's not even gonna like me anymore because I have this injury. And, like all these things going through my head at the same time. Um, and yeah, so I got checked out, had to tear an ACL, go through the process. I like came back really quick, 16 weeks, and I was back to like running, back to doing
Jeez.
all these things. Went home for winter break because I tore it beginning of October, got surgery beginning of November. Um, and I was like back to normal activity after like 20 weeks, did spring practice, rehabbed a lot, but it was like traditional, like just not really like the best rehab experience. Knowing what I know now about what should have happened, like it was just a lot of band work and balance, and it wasn't strength training. So yeah, that was like a big formative thing for me. And then came back the next season with my big brace on. And I felt like my coach just didn't believe in me anymore. But he would never say it. I was still the starting libero. We had this like freshman come in who was pretty good. And, we were still I felt like we were battling for the spot, even though I felt like should have it. Um, I was a captain at that point, and I just felt like the whole season he was like just expecting me to do bad. And so, like, halfway through the season, when I was supposed to be wearing this brace, I was like, fuck it, I'm taking it off. I'm not wearing it anymore because he doesn't trust me with it on. And from then on, I didn't feel like he was questioning me at all. It was just super weird. Um, but that was fine, whatever. Finished college. Um, we had a new coach my senior year, and anyways, it was all good. Whatever. Volleyball was like at the point of graduating, I was kind of just ready to be done. And graduated. When I graduated, I was actually at the point where I wasn't going to do strength, like personal training anymore. I was like, I wanted to be, a like admin at a college. I had a work study job where I was like overseeing a lot of like the people that all the work study students in the athletics department, and I loved it. So actually after my junior year, I went to like a seminar at the NCAA in Indianapolis, and I was like going to be like a career in athletics, like in college athletics. Crazy enough. And I'm actually really glad I didn't go down that path because I graduated in 2017. And if I would have like worked my way up, I would have finally had a job, and then COVID would have hit and I probably would have been laid off and never had a job. And I don't know what would have happened. I have no idea. Um, but then I was like, I never know. You know how you like look back at a time in your life and you're like, how was I surviving? Like, how was I like doing all the things? When I graduated, I took over for our college associate athletic director. She had her first kid who's now like almost 8 years old, and that makes me feel really old.
I think
And
about that with all the kids I used to nanny. I like look back and I'm like, oh my God, like they're like
they're like in college
teenagers.
now.
I know. I'm like, they're like getting their permits. And I'm like, wait, like I was changing your diaper. Like, what do you mean? Like you're getting a permit now? Like, not that old.
Throws you off. You're like, okay.
Nothing makes
Um,
me feel older than being Facebook friends with families I used
oh,
to nanny for. Like,
literally, it's so just. I'm like, wait, you're now in college? Like, I was babysitting you. We were watching Star
yes,
Wars when you were 4.
yes, yes.
Um, so yeah, at that time, I was living actually with the one of my friends whose sister was the one I took over for. So I was living with her, and that was like 15 minutes from the school. So I worked at the college that I graduated from. Actually, I was gonna go work for the Mariners. I was working for. This is actually really also. Oh my gosh! See, I don't remember these parts of my life. Starting in March of my senior year, I got a job with the Seattle Mariners as like I wanted to be in their front office, but at the time I was just working game day staff. So I
Mhm.
was working in their apparel department, and I worked 3 games. So I would drive up at like middle of the week, work the game, stay at my parents' house, and drive back down for classes the next day. And I did it 3 times, and they were okay with it. They were like, "We just need you to work once per week until you graduate, and then over the summer, obviously you can just have more shifts." Because I graduated like end of April, so it was really not that long. And then I got offered this job in my college department, so I quit the Mariners. I was like, I don't know that I even want to work my way up. Like, I'd rather get this position where whatever. So I was working full time at my college, and then over the summer. And then I also was waitressing at a golf course that I had worked at the past 2 years. So I would go to the college at like 5 a.m. I would get my workout in. I would work all day. I would go to the course like 3 to 4 days a week after work, work a shift until closing like 9 p.m., go home and do it all again. And I still had meal prepped all my meals. Like I was on point with my macros. I was hitting my lifts. I'm like, how did I do that? And then over the weekend, I would go stay. My husband lived at home with his parents in a town like 45 minutes away. So I would go and just stay there all weekend. And like I would do it every week. And I'm like, how? I don't even know how I did that. I'm like looking back, I'm like, I was freaking impressive. Like I was grinding, and I was like, I determined to just start paying my student loans right away. So that's why I had all these jobs. And yeah, what a wild time. But after that, I was like, I don't like desk jobs. I was like, I hate this. And so while I was working the desk job starting in like August, I started studying for my CPT, and then moved back up to Washington. Actually, I think I took my test down in Oregon, got my CPT at the beginning of October of 2017, moved back to Washington and started personal training. So I hated in-person training at 24 Hour Fitness. That's where I started. I worked there for 6 months, but I would like stay there all day trying to get clients. And it just was not a really like busy 24-hour fitness. It was like a smaller feel. It ended up closing like 2 years after I left. And I just didn't love it. I didn't love trying to get my own clients just at this one gym where like I just had to hope that a client that I wanted to work with would come in. I dabbled trying to be like online at that time. Like I'd make my own programs and try to sell them to my like 200 followers. Um, and it just didn't really work out. So I just post my workouts like all the time. I actually grew my following pretty well. Like I think I had like 2,000 followers, and that was at a time where like Instagram didn't have Reels. I don't even know how we found people back then. Um, and I had like a few like company like partnerships. I felt so cool. I was living my influencer life, and then I quit in person and I went full time at Orange Theory basically for like 2.5 years until COVID hit. Got laid off, and then I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I
Mhm.
need to be online. So, started online in 2020. I worked for an app for a year and like actually like kind of had my own online clients. And then we opened up our garage gym in 2020, end of 2020. Caden started building it. We had a detached garage. So we built the garage because before that, when the gyms had shut down, I had clients who were like, from Orange Theory, they were like, "Can you come train me?" So I would like go to their garage. I would train a group of them. I was actually like three of them. It was a husband, wife, and then the wife's sister. I would train them outside at an elementary school, like underneath cover because we lived in Washington and it was one freezing, but two it was also rainy all the time. So like there was nowhere we could train because I didn't have my in person garage yet. And so I would bring weights at like 5 in the morning. I would pack up my car with weights and I would drive 20 minutes to a nearby park or a nearby like school and I would train them outside. Like it was insane. Like this was COVID was wild. And that's what I did during COVID. Like I didn't really have a job. I would like work out like twice a day. I would do like our Facebook workouts for Orange Theory with our members, and I would go train these clients. And I did that 3 times a week with them. And then eventually had my garage where I did like small group training, personal training, and all this. And so, yeah, it was fun, which kind of takes me up into our wedding. We got engaged in May of 2019, and then we were supposed to get married August 2020, pushed it back because of COVID. And then I decided at the end of 2020 that I wanted, or maybe September 2020, when we pushed back our wedding, I was like, I want to compete. So I thought I was going to do a bikini competition that was literally going to be 2 months before my wedding. Um,
Oh, girl, that would have been crazy.
yeah. And so I like was getting lean. So I was
Mhm.
dieting. We went on vacation in 2020, February 2021. We went to Mexico with my family and my grandma was like, "You guys should go play beach volleyball." And I was like, "No, like I just want to relax. Like I don't really want to play volleyball." And then my grandma was like, "Just go do it." I was like, "Okay, grandma." So my dad, my brother, and Kaden, we all went down to the beach and played volleyball. And then all of a sudden a bunch of people came and wanted to start playing and we were like, "Ugh, okay, whatever." It was fun. We were having fun, whatever. And then I went to jump up to hit. The weirdest thing, I went to jump up and hit, and I felt a pop in my knee again. And I was like, fuck, I just tore my ACL again. And like, I just knew it. I started bawling my eyes out. I like crawled off the court. Everyone was like, do we still play? Like, freaking out. And this was like the second day of our vacation. So I walked around with a torn ACL. I actually didn't know it was torn at this point because I went and got like an MRI and they were like, it's not really like there's nothing really structurally wrong. Like the MRI was wrong. I got another scan in June and they were like, yeah, it's torn. And I was like, okay, cool. But I like was determined not to get surgery. I was like, I feel fine. I'm training normally, got married in July. I was like, also, I'm getting married like in a month. Um, and so I put off surgery for a whole year. I was supposed to get surgery on beginning of January of 2022. And funny enough, that was almost 2 years into COVID. I had not gotten COVID the entire time of like the ramp up of COVID. Funny enough, we had to get tested like 3 days before surgery to make sure we did not have COVID. Sure enough, I got COVID for the first time like 3 days before my surgery.
Oh
I was
my
a
God.
mess. So we had to push back surgery. Caden got COVID as well. I remember it hit him so much worse. Like it was such a strange like difference between the two of us. And like at the time, there wasn't a ton of COVID strains. Like you hadn't heard of all these different strains that were coming out. So, anyways, I had to push back my surgery a month, and then I got it in February. And by that point, we actually found out I had a torn medial meniscus. And then during surgery, they found out I also had a small little like tear in my lateral horn of my meniscus. So like 2 meniscus repairs and my ACL. I was on crutches for 4 weeks. I was in a brace for 6 weeks. And I remember just before, maybe it was just after my surgery, I looked at Kaden and I go, I don't want to live here anymore. I like don't want to be in Washington. And he was like, what? And we had actually tried to move down to Arizona a few different times, like in 2018 and 2017. I thought I was going to go to grad school down there. Um, and then we like just up and moved. We just were like, okay, like let's do it then. And a month after my surgery, I started NLCA, started my business coaching, started a business coaching to like grow my business, ended up growing it substantially. And then we moved and then we lived in Arizona. And it's just, that's kind of where I'm at now. I feel like the past 3 years have just been like a lot of like up and downs, a lot of different learning experiences. And now I'm here. And I feel like my like biggest formative things were like playing sports in college, playing sports growing up, tearing my ACL twice has just really led me to like where I am in training now and how I coach clients is like you don't know like when something could happen that's going to completely alter your life. Um, Much like you, I know you've dealt with like a lot of different things in your health journey and in your life. And like it just taught me to never take training for advantage. And that's something like I just kind of feel bad for the people who are totally willing to train, like willing or totally able to train, I should say, and not willing to train, not willing to work out, even though they're perfectly healthy to be able to do so. I think that's part of the reason why I'm always chasing like another thing to do, like another thing to compete in. As soon as I was healthy enough after my second surgery, I was like, I don't like being comfortable anymore because I think I just dealt with so much discomfort for so long that it's fun to like push myself into more discomfort, but in a way that allows for me to grow. And that's why I like jumped into high rocks. Now I'm jumping into a half marathon. I like want to continue high rocks, but I think it's also just because I realized like those things are things I want to take advantage of while I'm healthy and while I'm able. Um so yeah, I don't know. It's just so interesting to me. And that's like what I like coaching and clients do is like I want people to, and then that's also side note is like another reason I kind of ditched like the scale and like stressing about my physique because I think deep down I realized like every time I started stressing about that and wanting to lose weight and wanting to fit a certain mold, I ended up with an injury. And while that's not the case for everyone, I completely understand that. It's what I perceive to happen when I try to lose weight. And so I was like, well, I guess it's time that I stop trying to become smaller and skinnier and just focus on like how I can feel in the gym. And I don't think a lot of people get to that realization. And unfortunately, my realization happened because of like drama, like traumatic things happening in order to lead me to that. But it's something like I hope to help everyone realize, especially former athletes who struggle with their body image and struggle with their relationship with the gym because maybe they were pushed so hard in athletics that they're turned off to the idea of working out or turned off to the idea of training in a certain way, but they still have that competitive itch. Like I know everyone still has that competitive itch deep down if they played sports, but sometimes it just takes pulling it out of there. So yeah, that's a little bit of a nutshell. Not really
That
a
was a
nutshell
great,
because I
I was
elaborated
gonna
on a
say that
lot of
was a
things.
great nutshell. I liked that
Huge nut.
nutshell. No,
Yeah.
but I like what you said though about like it's fitness is such a privilege, like, you know, from going through injury myself and like my own health stuff. It's like it genuinely is such a privilege. And, you know, I get frustrated when people are like joking that they don't take care of their health, you know, like it's almost like the moment someone sees that you take care of yourself, they like joke about themselves not taking care of themselves. And I'm like, but you are so capable to take care of yourself. And as someone who like was stripped of that and knows so many people who would kill for the opportunity to like take advantage of that privilege again, it's just like it's so infuriating. But also, there was a past version of me not taking advantage of that and not taking advantage of my privilege. Like, you have to go through trauma to almost know, like, the privilege that you are stripped of.
Yeah.
So I can't agree more on that.
Even in like the past week, and I go back to too, like, and like you said, like people don't know what they don't know, kind of
You don't know
thing.
what you got till
You
it's
don't,
gone, pretty
yeah,
much. Yeah.
yeah. Or like if you're a perfectly healthy person and you're like, I just don't like working out. I just don't feel like I just don't feel motivated. It's like, yeah, but like imagine. I always tell people like, imagine if you couldn't do it though.
Hmm.
Like when those 4 months, 4 weeks where I couldn't walk and I was literally just bedridden. My mom would drive me to physical therapy, because Kaden was still like working at the time and couldn't take the time off. And just like, I just remember those times where I was just laying in bed all day. And even the past week of just
Hmm.
sitting on the couch, my back started hurting. And I'm like, well, no wonder you're in pain. Like people are in pain. It's because you're literally not doing anything. You're just
Yep.
sitting all day. And um, I think it's people are always worried. Well, every time I start working out, I end up injured, or every time I start working out, I'm sore all the time, or my joints ache. And it's like there's a level of growth you have to go through to like get to a point where you're not in pain anymore. And it's
Well,
not
it's
even
also
pain;
like
it's
the same
growth.
with recovery too. If you think about like ACL, the
Yeah.
first time that my PT relatively had me trying to bend my knee,
Oh,
the pain, like
yeah.
literally the pain you go through going through rehab, which like that's its own, we're going to have
Oh.
our own episode about injury and everything
Oh
there, but
yeah.
it's just like you're not going to get to be stronger without going through pain. Like, and I think that's where people just have this like association that like, oh, I feel pain, I should stop what I'm doing. It's like, well, you're probably feeling pain because you've done something for an extended period of time, such as be sedentary, that your body like naturally when you're doing something different is going to kind of throw off alarms. And most of the time pain is also psychological. Like I had to learn that so much with my back injury over the last 2 years, is how much of this is like my brain triggering something saying like, whoa, hey, when you've done this in the past it's caused issues,
Yep.
versus how much of it is actually a limitation, because you're only going to continue to have limitations if you let the limitations stop you from opening the window that you need of opportunity to go work on yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And like there's, I know people say this a lot, but there's like two pathways of discomfort that you get to choose in life. And there's always two paths. There's never, I don't believe there's any more than one. There's the path where you're going to continue to be in pain and discomfort with your body image and also just like your back hurting all the time. These small aches and pains, being just unhappy with your life, being sad. And I experienced it firsthand, like living in Washington with it was in February. It was gray. It was cloudy. It was
Yep.
depressing. It was rainy. I was inside all day. I had no vitamin D. And you just feel that.
Well,
And mental health takes a huge dip when you're not active. You're sitting in a dark room all day. Like you have that route of discomfort where it's really like all your choices almost. I won't say all of them. I totally understand there's some that you can't control, but like you're not exercising, you're not eating well, that's discomfort. You're not happy in your body. There's the other discomfort where like it takes hard work. You're going to be sore. Eating healthy isn't always like the most enjoyable thing, doesn't have to be, but like you're growing, you're maybe aching a little bit, maybe you feel a small tweak in something and you all of a sudden panic that you're injured again. But like there's the path of discomfort that's growth
yep.
and you get to get better all the time. And when you don't, you stop looking at that as like, not necessarily stop looking at it as pain, but stop looking at it as like so uncomfortable and like you're not worth it. And you start looking at it as like, wow, I can make whatever I want out of myself. I can reach any goal I want to. Like everything changes.
Yeah.
I like I posted a reel last week, and it was like, um, I thought 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I guess I got, so yeah, I was probably getting off crutches around this time 3 years ago. Um, but my journey was far from super easy. Like the second time around, I still can't fully straighten my knee, but I can do everything now. But like just getting my leg to bend and like to flex and extend fully, it was horrendous. I thought once we like shortly after we moved that I had retorn the ACL for some reason. Like I just had this weird feeling, and my rehab journey was just far from perfect. I just couldn't do a lot of the things I wanted to like I could the first time. And there was just so many thoughts that always went through my head that like I'm never going to be the same again. And even outward people saying that like, oh wow, you tore your ACL twice, like you're never going to be the same, and like you're going to have like you're going to have arthritis in your knee, and like just all those outward things, and also inward too of things that I'm telling myself. um but now I like look at it and like I don't think 3 years ago I would have ever thought that now I'm doing all the things that I do. um but you just have to allow for it to be a slow process, and you have to be patient.
Yeah.
um
Well, it's
and you
either
also,
things happen either or they don't. Like, and I think that's the biggest thing is like the only way that things are never going to progress is if you just accept that like things are never going to progress or change. And I think both of our stories, from me telling mine a couple weeks ago to you telling yours, it's like you either choose to like take these shitty things that happen in life and be like, okay, well, that's now me and my identity. And like, what's the point of even ever, like, you do volleyball intramurals, and it's like, you do that, but I'm sure like 3 years ago, you would have doubted ever getting back on a court, like, or thinking about that relatively. It's like, you just have to give yourself the time to grow and to go through discomfort. And sometimes discomfort like takes 3 years to work through. But the reality is, most people aren't willing to even go through a month of discomfort to get ultimately where they need to go.
yeah, that I'm so glad you brought that up. I totally forgot about that. It's funny because the girl that my friend that lives down here now,
Mhm.
she was one of my college roommates, and she asked us to play in that volleyball league. And this was it's August of 2023, and I was like I'm not sure. Like I both times I tore my ACL, I was playing volleyball, and like volleyball is such a big part of my life. I love volleyball. I coached volleyball. I don't know, I pretty. I coached volleyball for like 3 years after college, and I loved it. It was just such a transformative part of my life. But I was like totally wrote it off. I was like, I'm never gonna play again. It's what took so a big part of me away, even though it provided such a big part of me. And she was like, just do it, just try it. I was like, well, I'm just worried I'm gonna tear my ACL again. She's like, she's also a physical therapist, and she's like, but what if that like helped you kind of get past that fear? Like what if you just trying it out? She's like, just try one game. There was 8 people on our team, so we like rotated in and out. I was so nervous. I was like, do I wear my brace? Like what do I do? And I started playing, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so fun. And like I have zero fear now. Like it's just so crazy how, and we've been playing, like this is I think our 8th 7th season, something like that. We play like, 10, 12 week seasons throughout the year, and it's so much fun, and I get a hit now, and I get to like do all the things like, so yeah, I just feel like it takes having a little bit more of the openness to try new things, and it doesn't mean you're going to do them overnight. Like I think that's also another topic for another day, is like I always think about people that want to do something. They're like, every time I start to do more, I get injured. It's like, well, you're not going to be an Olympic level athlete overnight. Like, you can't just go from doing bodybuilding building style lifting to then trying to do the craziest calisthenic or even like Olympic lifting, like more explosive plyometric stuff. Like, you can't just go from solely bodybuilding to doing all of those things at once. Like, it requires a slow build up into it.
And
Same
I
thing with
think
running.
and I think that's what like social media doesn't like show people is like you see all these cool flashy things or all the high rocks things, right? Like
Yep.
my entire feed is high rocks right now, and it's like you see it and you see these people, and there's plenty of people who are probably sitting here like, oh my god, I want to do a high rocks, and meanwhile they haven't ran a mile in ages. And so it's like it's just it takes time, and you don't see the hard work, which is why I love like the podcast side of things, where we get to sit here and be like, hey, like back in 2014, here's exactly what I've been dealing with for the last 10 years and what I've had to work through over a 10-year span to ultimately get where I am today. Whereas on social media, you only see like a 60-second or less highlight reel and not the journey someone went on to get there in any capacity.
Yep. It's you see the result and not the journey, which is
Mhm.
part of why I wanted to do this half marathon like reel series, which just started as more of like a documentation for me to be like,
Yep.
wow, I did this thing. And I've actually gotten some followers from it and some people that are just like, this is inspiring me. Like, I hate running and I think I want to try to do something like this. And it's like, because I'm actually showing that every week it's not perfect. And also that it's a slow build up. I started running like 7 miles a week, and only increasing my distances by like 10% a week. But I think we live in that day and age of like, I want it now versus like, hey, work up to it and you
Mhm.
can be there, but you just have to be patient with the process. Like it's not all sunshine and rainbows all of a
Totally.
sudden. So, yeah, I
Absolutely.
can't wait to like, talk about more like that stuff too in future podcasts of just like what train, like, I don't know, the journey of training and like things to how to do things the right
Yep.
way, so that you're limiting injury and all that. Learn from
Yep.
us. We walked so you can run.
We should put that on a t-shirt.
That should be a t-shirt. Kelsey and Chris walked so you could run.
Truly, truly. I'm like, please listen to us. We've been through
Yeah,
so much. We've lived
trust
so
me.
many lives
Just learn
over the
from you.
last 10 years. So,
My kids are gonna
no.
hate me in the future because I'm gonna be like, back in my like,
Back
learn
in
from
my
back in
day.
my day. I don't want you to hurt an ACL, so that's why we're gonna start you lifting at 12 years old because
Yeah,
I didn't and I didn't gain muscle and then I ended up injured. Um,
exactly.
Again, another story for another day. But like, yeah.
No,
So
that was great. Thanks for sharing your story.
yeah, thanks for anyone who made it to this point and listened to our yap sesh at the beginning. But hopefully, I always like talking about my story because I don't, um, like, I think that learning about everyone's journey is so important and it's so cool to see where people have been. And I think it's so cool how much can change in such a small amount of time. So if you're going through something right now, like, just know it can get better if you push through. And if you, what was the word I was trying to think of? Per
Persevere.
Persevere. If you persevere and just push through it, like I I was quite literally in the shits in the like in the muddy shit in 2022 and now we're here. So, yeah, keep pushing if you're going through something. And also, like, Chris and I are always here if you feel like you resonate with anything on the podcast, like, please feel free to reach out. It's like the best feeling when someone's like, "Oh my gosh, I just watched that podcast, listened to that podcast and it just helped me so much." So, we appreciate if you're here. Thank you for listening.
Thanks.
Um and we're
And we'll,
excited to post our coaches' journeys here shortly in the next couple weeks as well.
yes, yes. And we'll see you guys next time.
See you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.